So, this one's going to be again about a new article from James Clear on the jamesclear.com website. I'm always going to say that, it just really sounds to be like an ad or something, but it is not. I do just want to let you know where I am so that you can also go through this exact same article as well if you want to. If I've just, misread a lot of things, if an episode isn't that good, you can still head into the description or into the show notes if you're on a podcast and view the article yourself, read it on yourself. I don't know, maybe you haven't understood something. It is just good. It is just good. And this article is going to be on the 1% rule. I don't know what this is all about, but it seemed to be relatively interesting, and it is a really a new article, I assume. I think it is from 2019 actually. But more after the intro, as always. And I'm just gonna get my blankets so that the audio is way better and a little bit more professional if you want to, because I assume, I really do assume that it, first of all sounds better. And it is also nice because, as you might see, I've just been working out because I'm sweating like just a piece of shit. And having sweaty arms, having a wooden desk, well, it doesn't work that good together. It is really not working like I want it to work. And thanks. Please work. My light just turned itself off. But until it's gonna be just rebooting up or something, or recharging, I guess, we're going ahead with this article. We're starting with this article, and this article is called, as you cannot see, unfortunately. Let me just see. Here it is. The 1% rule, why a few people get most of the rewards. I thought it was relatively interesting because there's also going to be a story in the first place. And they also talk about the Pareto principle, which is also a pretty good one. A pretty known one. I really don't think that a lot of people don't know about it or don't know of it, because it is really popular, or it got really popular and trendy because of all those self-development and self-help or motivational sites on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, which is not bad. It's really not bad. I really just hope that everyone's feeling good. This is what I want. At least in these 30 minutes that somebody's viewing my fucking content. This is okay, in this certain time or in this certain just period of time, I do want people feel good or entertained or just really not sad, I guess. And this is what I'm trying to do here, besides actually spreading a lot of value and trying to do that. But I'm also gonna turn on my TV because it kind of feels a little bit a little bit too less light here. But until then, I'm gonna start reading right now. Sometime in the late 1800s, nobody is quite sure exactly when, a man named Vilfredo Pareto was fussing about in his garden when he made a small but interesting discovery. Pareto noticed that a tiny number of pea pods in his garden produced the majority of the peas. Now, Pareto was a very mathematical fellow. He worked as an economist, and one of his lasting legacies was turning economics into a science rooted in hard numbers and facts. Unlike many economists of the time, Pareto's papers and books were filled with equations, and the peas in his garden had set his mathematical brain in motion. What if this unequal distribution was present in other areas of life as well? Well, who the fuck thinks like that? In the first place, this is what I ask myself. Who the fuck thinks like that? I assume he was thinking like that, just by what I'm reading here. Nobody really knows, Nobody really knows. But, who really does that? I'm actually having... Funny thing, I'm actually now having, a river in front of me, which is a pre-set picture on my TV, some sorta, interestingly. But yeah, I think it's working as well, I guess. But yeah, I'm gonna just turn on my ceiling light as well. Oh, I'm really sorry, but I gotta have to hurry up a little bit because I'm not gonna have as much time as I want to today, unfortunately. So the Pareto principle, and I assume you know it. Before I actually go through it, I think I'm gonna just explain it in my words and then see if I was quite right or not. The thing is, the Pareto principle is like the following. Let's take the peas actually. 20% of the peas produce 80% of the peas, or 20% of the pea. Is a pea like this small green thing? Am I thinking correctly right now? Or is it something different? I also thought about fruits, but I'm not quite sure. The thing is, 20% of the pea kind of trees or whatever it is, I don't give a fuck, are producing 80% of the peas in the end. And on the other hand, because there is just something left, 80% of the peas, or 80% of the left peas, produce 20% of the left peas, or peas trees produce peas. Yeah, really complicated. But this is basically what the Pareto principle says. But I hadn't thought about it in terms of like, do really like 20% of the people earn 80% of the... well, it could actually be the case. It could really be the case that 20% of the people get 80% of the trophies or of the rewards, because it really sounded for me like, okay, it's about like trophies, it's about like winning things, and it is like really not about rewards in general, like whether it be money or whether it be love, whether it be something else. I was thinking about trophies there, but I think hopefully he's gonna explain that afterwards. But let's actually see how he is describing the Pareto principle, the Pareto Principale. At the time, Pareto was studying wealth in various nations. As he was Italian, he began by analyzing the distribution of wealth in Italy. To his surprise, he discovered that approximately 80% of the land in Italy was owned by just 20% of the people. Similar to the pea pods in his garden, most of the resources were controlled by a minority of the players, or the people, or the participants, or whatever it is. Pareto continued his analysis in other nations, and a pattern began to emerge. For instance, after poring through the British income tax records, he noticed that approximately 30% of the population in Great Britain earned about 70% of the total income, which is definitely something. It's definitely something. As he continued researching, Pareto found that the numbers were never quite the same, but the trend was remarkably consistent. The majority of rewards always seemed to accrue to a small percentage of people. This idea that a small number of things account for the majority of the results became known as the Pareto principle, or more commonly the 80-20 rule. Like I've explained it, 80% of the 20% of the things creates 80% of the things. Like, basically, if you've just understood what I was talking about. But yeah, the thing is, it's actually the case. I don't know what it is about in Austria, like with land and income and whatever it is, but I assume it is fairly similar. And is this surprising me? Well, I gotta have to say, like, nah, somehow not, because I don't know, like, there have always been kingdoms, there have always been people with a lot of land, and most of the time those people with a lot of land also, on paper at least, had a lot of just money. It is what it is. I don't know what it is about in the States, because I don't know how land is distributed there, which person or who is having land besides their own just land where the house is on and whatever. But in Europe, or at least in Austria, it is relatively common that farmers have really, really, really high percentages of the land. For example, in my town, it is really like we have a few farmers and they own just a really lot of land. I'm actually in the district of Austria. Like Austria has certain districts, and I'm living in a district with the highest living cost, basically, because if you're buying some land, it's gonna be fucking expensive. It's gonna be the most expensive land in whole Austria, and I can understand that, because of the mountains and the view is nice and whatever, and nature and those things. But the thing is, like, it is fucking expensive, It is really like some people are really unable to live here and or to just sustain. Well, I do also have to say, like, people are having their standards. Like, people want to have this, people want to have that. Not a lot of people want to step down, because most of the time, like, okay, they have been in their parents' home and there everything was nice, and they're gonna move out and they're gonna have a shitty thing. They're gonna have a shitty place. They're not gonna eat as well and whatever. And it's not a lot of people want that. I can understand that, of course, but it is like, yeah, it makes sense that you're not gonna have just, I don't know, as much money, as much like nice food, whatever it is. The thing is, it is really expensive, and those farmers have a lot of fucking land, and I think it is worth just quite a lot. Like, it is really worth a lot, especially, I don't know, when they're selling something to some construction firms and they then build just a really big house where a lot of people have their flats in or whatever. There must be a name for that, but I don't know that. But the thing is, like, yeah, they do just really have to be relatively wealthy on paper. In reality, it is like, I don't know, unless they don't sell their land, they basically have nothing in their hands. They have the land, and maybe the land is even pretty shitty, because I can assume that some land is worth more than some other land, and whatever, But the thing is, they're just really, really, really wealthy. At least some of them have just not as much land as others, of course, but in general, they have quite a lot of land, and there are also going to be just some family inheritance kind of things, where just families just always had a lot of land, and are always going to have a lot of land, and it is what it is, and these people are obviously quite wealthy, on paper. I'm always going to say on paper, because, like, in reality, they do not have that money. But yeah, because, like, okay, because of that, I don't know what it is about in the States, if it is like a common thing that families always had land, and they just, I don't know, through heritage and whatever, they just, I don't know, their kids get it or whatever. Like, in Europe, I think it is relatively common, maybe because of all the kingdoms of the Middle Age or whatever, could be the case, could really be the case. But yeah, inequality everywhere. In the decades that followed, Pareto's work practically became gospel for economists. Once he opened the world's eyes to this idea, people started seeing it everywhere, and the 80-20 rule is more prevalent now than ever before. For example, through the 2015 to 2016 season in the National Basketball Association, 20% of franchises have won 75.3% of the championships. Furthermore, just two franchises, the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers, have won nearly half of all the championships in NBA history. Like Pareto's Peapods, a few teams account for the majority of the rewards. The numbers are even more extreme in soccer. While 77 different nations have competed in the World Cup, just 3 countries, Brazil, Germany and Italy, have won 13 of the first 20 World Cup tournaments. I didn't know that. I only knew that Brazil won like 8. Have they won 8? I don't know. World Cup winners. Let's actually see. Because I'm interested, I assume that that a lot of people, especially from the States, are really not interested. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna show you right now, because you might be interested in that. So there it is. So Brazil won in 1958, 1962, 1970, 1994, and in 2002, which makes up to just 5 World Cup wins. Italy has 1934, 1938, 1982, and 2006. Germany 1954, 1974, 1990, and 2014. 2014, yeah. So they both have like 8 together, or 4 as an individual. Uruguay, they actually won 2 times, which actually sets them pretty high on this list, I would say. Like, yeah, it is a list. It is a list, right? It is a list, Am I right? It is, never mind. But I didn't actually know that just such such a low amount of countries actually have won the championship. I thought like, quite a lot of those have won it. Then Argentina 2 times, France 2 times, England 1 time, and Spain once in 2010. Really interesting, which it makes up to 9, 13, 15, 17, 19, 20, 21 World Cups up to this point. And the first one was in 1934. And it seems to be the case that Italy won the first one. Oh no, 1930. Yeah, okay. Uruguay won the first one. I knew that, I think. I knew that, but I'm not quite sure. But yeah, really, really, really interesting. Examples of the Pareto principle exist in everything from real estate to income inequality to teach tech startups. In the 1950s, 3% of Guatemalans owned 70% of the land in Guatemala. 3%. That's like 2 people, isn't it? Like, I guess. I don't know. In 2013, 8.4% of the world's population controlled 83.3% of the world's wealth. Like, yeah, it is still the case. Like, I don't know, Jeff Bezos, then Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Mark Zuckerberg, they, like, I don't know, do they have a trillion? No, I think they don't, like they have just half a trillion or something. I don't know, it is definitely quite a lot of money. It is really a lot of money. In 2015, one search engine, Google, reached or received 64% of search queries. So why does that happen? Why do a few people, teams, and organizations enjoy the bulk of the rewards in life? To answer this question, let's consider an example from nature. The power of accumulative advantage. Really interesting. I really like these articles, but I'm really sorry to say that we're not going to be able to finish it up today. I at least guess, by the speed that I'm going through this. But I'm also really not looking forward to being faster, because being faster is not really more fun for me. And when it is not fun for me, it is like, shitty for you as well, because I'm like, you can notice, I think people can notice. I in general think that people can notice quite a lot of shit. The Amazon rainforest is one of the most diverse ecosystems on Earth. Scientists have cataloged approximately 16,000 different tree species in the Amazon. But despite this remarkable level of diversity, researchers have discovered that there are approximately 227 hyper-dominant tree species that make up nearly half of the rainforest. Just 1.4% of the tree species account for 50% of the trees in the Amazon. 1.4% of the tree species. Like, I do just also have to say that it comes up to how you group them. Like, I can somehow just really, really see that it could be the case that you are like, okay, there are 2 trees or 3 trees. Well, let's say like there are 5 trees, 10 trees. There are 10 trees, and like, I don't know, 6 of them have a different species just because you want them to have a different species, or they are just slightly different, which is, I think, okay. But I don't know, is there a way that you can somehow just say like, okay, there are more species because you just want to have more species, or doesn't that make any sense? Because I don't know, I'm just thinking about like, okay, is there any way that people are saying like, okay, there are 200 species, but it's just 200 species because they wanted them to just be 200 species, but you could definitely also break them down to 120 or something. I don't know, like, I might be just talking bullshit there, but I'm just assuming, I'm just thinking. But why? Imagine 2 plants growing side by side. Each day they will compete for sunlight and soil. If one plant can grow just a little bit faster than the other, then it can stretch taller, catch more sunlight, and soak up more rain. The next day, this additional energy allows the plant to grow even more. This pattern continues until the stronger plant crowds the other out and takes the lion's share of sunlight, soil, and nutrients. Of course, when something is growing, when something is growing just faster than something else, it's going to be just some exponential rise. It's going to be exponentially better than the other one, or just higher, or just, I don't know what it is, but it's just going to be some exponential thing, because, okay, they are better and they're getting just better and better and better and better exponentially. And it is just really then an amazingly high growth. And I by the way think that it is the exact same thing on YouTube as well. Like I assume that like, I don't know, 10% of the people have like, I don't know, 90% of the views or something, you know. I guess, you know, there's just a lot of views on YouTube each day, but I could think about it. Like just, I don't know, people like Mr. Beast, PewDiePie, all those people, they're just gaining a lot of views and or subscribers in terms of PewDiePie for this point. But it is interesting. But the thing is, they grow and they're gonna grow, and they're gonna grow exponentially once they started to grow. And this could also be the beauty of doing this, because once you've catched some viewers, once you've catched something, then it is probably gonna grow. And if you're growing once, it's probably gonna be just some exponential growth. It, you know, still depends on some variables, because there's a lot of shades of gray on this planet. There's not really a lot of binary things here. But the thing is, like, once people are watching, they're gonna keep watching, they're gonna tell other people, more people are gonna watching, and so on and so on and so on. Really interesting, you know, but it definitely makes sense. It really makes sense. So from this advantage position, the winning plant has a better ability to spread seeds and reproduce, which gives the species an even bigger footprint in the next generation. This process gets repeated again and again until the plants that are slightly better than the competition dominate the entire forest. Something that is really important to point out there is that he says the plants that are slightly better, which means that you might be applying this also to just other sides of life, which means, for example, YouTube or just whatever business you're doing, you do just need to be slightly better than the competition. I assume, because especially on social media, it is actually the case that the one that is better is winning, you know. When I'm producing better content than somebody else, well, even though it is just really important to say that what is better content? Is it better in just, I don't know, quality, in terms of really pure quality, like I have a 4K camera and you only have a 2K camera? But it is not the case, you know. It is not quality. It is not a better content because of that. But value just really has to play into that, or really is playing into that, I assume at least, because if something is higher in value, people are gonna watch it, you know, and people are gonna prefer it over something else that is maybe lower in value. And it also just depends on your personality. Just like, again, so many variables and so many factors. So what is better? But it is really important to point out that if something is better, or when something is better, then it's gonna get attention. It's gonna be dominant. It's gonna dominate the other things. Scientists refer to this effect as accumulative advantage. What begins as a small advantage gets bigger over time. One plant only needs a slight edge in the beginning to crowd out the competition and make over the entire forest. I'm really sorry to say that we actually have to stop here, you know, because I'm already 23 minutes in, but I could just, can I? The thing is, I don't know if the next thing is going to be just a little bit too long, I guess. I would like to, but the thing is, I'm going to let it be what it is, but I'm going to end the episode relatively quickly so that I'm not going to stretch it on just like by no reason, you know, something that I'm doing sometimes. But yeah, this episode was slightly better than the other one. The talking thing was a little bit better, like something, you know, I think the thing that I'm most struggling with is that I'm just, sometimes really somehow not able to talk properly. And then, you know, everything's fucked and everything's actually sad. Everything is actually sad then. But yeah, it is what it is. But I'm really not looking forward to stopping this episode there. I would really like to continue it, because it is just, you know, once everything is just working fine, once everything is just nice, it is just such a lot of fun. And I'm so fucking grateful that I'm able to do what I'm doing here. And once people actually start to view it, once people start to just show interest in it, it's just going to be amazing. It's just going to be just fun for me. It's just going to be amazing for me. But yeah, it is what it is. I wish you the best health, happiness, and also success. And I also hope that you're going to remind yourself on how you're going to be remembered. So basically your legacy, because we totally can shape it, even though something that is to be said is that no matter how nice you are and no matter how generous you are, there's still going to be someone that doesn't like you. just because it is what it is, just because it is how we human beings seem to be, I guess, to some degree. But yeah, also think about your purpose, and some questions that might help you to figure out your purpose might be, why are you on this planet? What are you trying to change on this planet? And what is bothering you the most? Like, what is pissing you off the most on this planet? There you might find even a business idea, and you might find your purpose here, which is amazing. Like, two-folded win-win is a two-folded win. Like, you know what I mean. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. I really mean it. I really fucking mean it. And I see you the next time. I hope, at least. Subscribe to the podcast if you do not want to miss out on something. And also just subscribe to the YouTube channel if you do not as well want to miss out on something. With that being said, I see you the next time. Thanks a lot.